Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another classic WoW.live PvP guide. My name is Kargoz, and today we are so very lucky to have a world-class PvPer, mage tryhard, Twitch streamer, and above all else, good friend in our midst, North. In this episode, we thought it would be valuable to compile a list of the top 5 strongest consumables in World PvP. We will count down from 5 to 1 and try our best to provide useful commentary and an example use case for each item. We hope you enjoy. So first off, thank you for being here, North. You're a legend, man. How's it going today?
You're too kind. It's going great.
I think a good starting point is to overview the role consumables play in the PvP meta. So Vanilla WoW is unique in the sense that there are no templated, instanced arena-type environments with streamlined stats or anything like that. All options are on the table. So North, why don't you kick us off, man? Do you have any initial thoughts on the role consumables play in PvP?
Of course. So I think, unlike later versions of the game, really any other version outside of Vanilla, there is this emphasis on World PvP that really sets, World PvP and consumables that sets Vanilla apart. So you spend a lot more time in Vanilla actually out in the world farming these consumes because of how powerful they are, in part. You have things like limited invulnerability potions that make you immune to physical attacks for 6 seconds, or a free action potion which will make you immune to any form of CC for 30 seconds. And these consumes are so strong that people who can remove them, shamans, priests with offensive dispels, become more powerful in these metas because of how important these items actually are. So I think that it's kind of daunting looking at it from a 10,000 foot view as someone just first entering the game. Oh, what's this? Lip, lap, fap, fip, fo. There's 100 different consumes. It feels like. You don't use that many. You probably stick to using around 10, and even within that, for World PvP in general, you only need like 5 to 6. So I think if people are a little more comfortable.
Okay, so 5 to 6 consumables that you're actually using out in World PvP realistically, that's not too bad to wrap your head around. So the one thing I will add to this overview is that I think people talk about PvP in Classic WoW and make it seem like it's rock, paper, scissors, and that the classes are imbalanced. Well, if there's one thing I've learned over the past year or two making videos, is that you really can't even make generalizations in this game. Like, it's so hard to say a hunter is this good in PvP, or a mage is this good in PvP, because the items and the consumables add so much complexity and depth to the game that they give you the tools to go above and beyond, to go the extra 9 yards and perform beyond the limitations of your class. And that is very, very unique to Vanilla. I don't think items or consumables have been more impactful in any other iteration of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I think you're speaking well to like what is the beautiful RPG element that consumables really add to PvP in Vanilla, because you are this, right, you're an adventurer who, if you have the money for it, is spending a slew of fucking gold just on any old potion that they can drink, because when it comes to fighting people out in the world, right, you're not in this weird constructive competitive environment. You're there to win through any means necessary for the things that you've gone out in the world to acquire. So I think that that's just one of the biggest sells of Vanilla, and I think that it shines through in consumables.
Okay, so we're going to move into the list now, guys. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to first announce the number and the name of the consumable. I'm going to proceed to read off the tooltip, and then I'll pass it off to North, and he's going to break it down for us. So in the number 5 slot, we have Invisibility Potion. It requires level 37, and the use gives the imbiber invisibility for 18 seconds, cooldown 10 minutes. North, break it down.
Sure. And before I go into specifics, I just want a little disclaimer. Right, this list has influences me as a mage player, so right, a rogue or a druid might not see an invisibility potion and be like, oh wow, amazing. But it has uses largely outside of those classes. Rogue and druid are not going to be as good for it, but there still are uses for them. The reason why I put this on the list is because in a lot of situations you'll find yourself in World PvP corpse camped, or right in a situation where you'll have 4 people following you. And so long as you can be out of combat, right, if you immediately res and run, or if you, say, blink away or sprint away, maybe not sprint away because you can probably just vanish as a rogue, but if you have any other form of speed, say a Skull of Impending Doom, you can get away, immediately, and if you're not taking damage or have dots, you can pop this invisibility potion. You have 18 seconds to walk around and do whatever it is that you want, so you can get away from those situations in which you're properly outmatched.
Real quick, I remember you mentioning back during one of our PvP panels weeks ago that there are different levels of invisibility, and that like stealth is different, and you know, what kind of invisibility is this?
That's a very important distinction, yeah. So this is, warlocks can detect invisibility, so invisibility is different from stealth, and that you aren't reduced in terms of time, and it's through this potion. If you use any ability, it will break you out of this invisibility, and warlocks can detect it with either invisibility, detect invisibility, which they do at later ranks, or lesser detect invisibility if you have a lesser invisibility potion.
Okay, gotcha. So North, you know, sorry if this is a little too elementary, but do you mind painting us a picture, laying out a scenario for us, a situation where you might utilize a invisibility potion to great effect?
No, of course. So you find yourself in a Gurg crater, and you wake up, you have your coffee, and you're thinking to yourself, hey man, I want to kill some Devil Stars. So you go out there, you find a Devil Star. He's walking around. You kill him. You kill him dead, and you skin him. And after you skin him, 4 big bad members of the Horde see your tiny gnome ass walking away with a leather, and they're thinking to themselves, I haven't had breakfast yet, and I'd really, really like some gnome tenderloin for my mid-morning meal. And they eat you alive, right? There's a warrior and 2 shamans and a druid. So there's nothing you can do. There's not that you don't have a chance in hell of escaping. But there are 2 situations here. Either they kill you and you go back to your corpse, or you see them behind yourself and you blink forward as a mage and you pop this invis pot. Or you walk back to your corpse and you res, blink, and pop this potion. You have 18 seconds to run in any random direction that they don't expect, so that you can mount up. So even though the fact that they're barreling you down from 15 miles out, right? Yeah, sure, you're unmounted because you just skinned that Devil Star and you're not going to make it out. But if they can't see you for 20 seconds, so long as you can make it far enough away to mount up, you'll be fine.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, so let's move on to the next one now. Number 4 is the Swiftness Potion. This is a personal favorite of mine. Just when it comes to leveling, guys, this is a little quick aside. I love buying these, man. It will save you so many deaths, man. But anyway, what do you think about the Swiftness Potion, North?
I love it to death. It's cheap as hell, so it really is feasible to have it at all times, no matter how poor you are, which is part of why it's cool. But like you said, it's super strong, especially earlier on when you don't have a mount, right? You have, this is, you know, one of the best speed cooldowns. It's 50% for 15 seconds. It lasts for a long time. And if speed is the only thing that's going to get you right away from a situation, you've got the Swiftness pot. Look no further. It's a speed cooldown when so many classes lack a speed boost, right? If you're not a druid or a rogue, you're really or a hunter, you're lacking a good run speed increase. And even if you are right, a druid or a rogue, it's not as good as if you're a druid or hunter, but even if you're a rogue, you can use that after your sprint, so it's not actually competing. And most of the classes, right, don't actually have a form of a move speed steroid, so they end up in situations, warlocks, ret paladins, mages frequently, warriors. Probably warrior doesn't want to use the Swiftness Potion as much as they want to use a FAP if they're fighting, but if you're running away from something, you really do want to have the Swiftness Potion to break speed, because if someone else doesn't have it, and the only thing stopping you from getting away or catching up to someone is a small burst of speed, nothing else is really going to provide this in the game. It's the best movement consumable.
Totally. And cost is a factor. In reality, in practice, you're not just going to have the big one available to you all the time, right? Like, I feel like there's almost the fact that you said it's so cheap, it's like the potion for the job oftentimes, because it's so inexpensive to acquire, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You raised a good point too. It might be valuable to the people to share with them how potions even work, right? So it's not like you can just pop all these potions at the same time. You're like running around in Invis with a FAP and a lip and a whatever all on at the same time. So how do potions work in Classic?
Yeah, sure. So we'll just go over both, like essentially both consumable, all 3 consumable like tabs. There are essentially 3 kinds. So there's potions, engineering items, and explosives, and sort of misc consumables. So, and there are 3 cooldowns. There's 3 cooldowns for each. So potion cooldown, any potion will put it on a 2-minute cooldown. So swiftness potion, free action potion, anything this is potion in the name is going to put you on a 2-minute cooldown where you can't use any other potions.
And you can use them in combat.
Yes, of course. And they don't have, there's no timer that starts ticking. It's just a 2-minute cool. There's no timer that's after combat. It's just 2 minutes from when you use the potion, you can use another one.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Thanks for the breakdown. Yeah. So last thing I'll say, guys. Oh yeah, swiftness potion. Let's do a little scenario, man. What would just be a commonplace scenario? It doesn't have to be too crazy, but just when you would use a swiftness potion.
Sure. So you are poking the various players at the northwestern Twilight Post in Silithus, just to get a bit of fun, because you can see them farming, in small groups of 2, typically around the entire camp, and there might be like 10 players there. You start poking the beehive, you kill 1 or 2 players, they're low, you kind of chunk them off, maybe you kill a 3rd or a 4th, and then they start turning to you, and they say, hey, there's this little nomasel at the edge of the Twilight Post, and I didn't want to get up, and I didn't want to have to come chase him, but now he just killed 4 people. And he's going to keep killing us one by one. So everyone mounts up while you're fighting another random guy. You can't mount up immediately because you're still fighting someone. And they start barreling down. So what do? Well, you're in combat. You don't have a lot of move speed on you. You can try and fight 5 people at the same time while you've already just spent a couple cooldowns killing those 4 people prior. Or you can play the smart move, turn around, blink out, pop a swiftness potion, run away until you get out of combat, mount up, and hopefully be out of sight.
Alright, so we're moving on now. We're on to number 3. The number 3 most valuable PvP consumable is the Heavy Rune Cloth Band-Aid. Now, we've been seeing some of the flashy potions, Invisibility potion, Swiftness potion. Now, this is a pretty straightforward consumable, but do you think it's important in PvP? And you ranked it potentially higher than Swiftness and Invisibility. Is this something that you really value in PvP, North?
Yes. Again, that might be something to do with the fact that I'm a mage, right? A healer is not going to value this as much as other classes just because of their ability to sustain. But by and large, for everyone, even healers, when they're running out of mana or in very specific situations, are going to want to have first aid, are going to want to have these bandages, because all it takes is a quick reset to actually get an advantage out of this. So it doesn't even need to be 8 seconds, but even a half-channeled band-aid, right? That 1,000 health can be all the difference between, living and dying in a lot of situations. So given that a lot of classes have at least a short form of CC, even if it's not an absolute form of CC, you can, for instance, as a druid, root someone with entangling roots. Say it's a warrior. Even though they can shoot you, you can walk out of range of their bow and start bandaging right then and there. It's not going to be the best for you as a druid, but same principle applies as a mage. If you really, really need to regen in the middle of a warrior or rogue duel and you know that they have no more cooldowns to catch up with you, you can just root them or sheep them and walk away if they're rooted and not walk if they're sheeped, and just bandage up for 2,000 health if you get the full tick off.
Nice. All right. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's move on to the next one then. Number 2, this is a funny one, guys. It's called North named these. I have a feeling this is going to catch on. I love the term for it. He's calling them the Dr. Seuss potions. Now, what are we talking about here? There's these. Maybe you can explain it better than I can, man, but there's all these weird little abbreviations, and this kind of just makes it a little bit cleaner to think about.
So, at number 2, we have what I like to call the Dr. Seuss potions. So, the Limited Invulnerability Potion, the Living Action Potion, and the Free Action Potions. Affectionately, the Lip, the Lap, and the Fap. So, these potions I kind of put in their own category because I had a bit of a bias as a mage trying to, sift through... not just including the Limited Invulnerability Potion because it is so strong for casters, but the role that all three of these potions play is essential in world PvP. So, not mentioning the other 2 in the rhyming trio would be a bit of a disservice to those other classes who use it more than maybe a mage might.
Makes sense. So I'll go through the tooltips right now. We can break it down. First one is Limited Invulnerability Potion. The use is that it makes the imbiber immune to physical attacks for the next 6 seconds. Living Action Potion. makes the Imbiber immune to stun and movement impairing effects for the next 5 seconds, but it also removes pre-existing stun and movement impairing effects. The third is Free Action Potion, or the FAP. This makes the Imbiber immune to stun and movement impairing effects for the next 30 seconds, but it does not remove effects already on the Imbiber. So let's start with Limited Invulnerability Potion, North. We talked yesterday. You said that in practice as a mage, this is the one you find yourself using most, right? So how does this one work?
So essentially, this makes you, right, as it states, it makes you immune to physical attacks for 6 seconds. What people might not know is that includes all physical attacks. It's not just the auto attacks from the rogue, it's the sinister strikes, it's the backstabs, it's the cheap shots, it's the kidney shots. Anything that requires a weapon to use and that is classified as physical, it will make you immune to. And so, practically, right, when I'm in a situation in which I've drawn the ire of several respectable Chinese gentlemen on the side of the horde who are now chasing me and happen to all be melee, if I turn around and on my puny little mage that has a lot of spell power but doesn't have a lot of health, I take 4, 5, 6 hits from fairly high damage classes, I'm gonna be swimming with the fishes fairly quickly. So this lets us, right, for 6 seconds be immune to everything, which usually throws people off guard because, you know, they're not as used to this being used very, very frequently because it's kind of expensive in World PvP. But when you start turning on this little gnome mage who's in your face, and there's no animation other than him drinking a potion that indicates that anything has changed, he is now immune to your intercept, your kidney shot, you know, your backstabs. And so those, even just that few seconds of this person being immune can turn the fight precisely because I can get off a Nova.
And not only the damage effect, right? That blows my mind. The actual 3 second stun, right? Intercept, you're saying you're immune to the actual stun of that, dude. That's so crazy.
Yeah, because the ability never lands, right? So that you can resist the intercept stun. But if you're immune to intercept, the warrior can go fuck himself.
Makes sense. So there's and also you mentioned that these are dispellable, right? And that something with like these short cooldowns might be more valuable because you might get more towards full value from them as opposed to like the long drawn out one.
Exactly. The likelihood that, for instance, like if you look to the bottom here of a free action potion getting dispelled when it lasts for 30 seconds is going to be pretty high. But even if the limited invulnerability potion, even if it lasts for 1 global, right, you're still getting 25% of its use. A second and a half is 25% of its use, and so, right, it'll remove anything that's also on you. This thing about limited invulnerability potion I didn't mention. If there's a hamstring, if there's a wing clip, if there are bleeds on you, using a limited invulnerability potion will remove those debuffs. So, also, an interesting one is net.
Okay, so it's reactionary, right? Instead of proactive. You can be reactive instead of proactive to get value from them, right? So I wonder if it works that way even if you are stunned.
So you can't use it while stunned, but you can use it while at any other CC. So if a cooldown, if a CC would prevent you from using a potion generally, you can't use it. But if you're slowed or anything like that.
Right, and so that's where living action comes in then.
Exactly. So moving into living action, that is the answer essentially if you are locked down. So if you find yourself in a situation where, right, you know, if I could have lipped before and the rogue opens up in the kidney and the cheap shot, sure. Right, I can just immune all of them and he can't do anything to me for 6 seconds. It's a second longer and he can't do damage. But, right, that's, you know, we're past that point if we're using a living action potion. The rogue has already stunned us, we're already locked down, and we're worried that we won't be able to, right, escape the stun and live. So, you pop living action potion, you're immune to all forms of CC, right, stun and movement impairing, all forms of CC that are stun or movement impairing effects. So, a rogue or a warrior, so long as they don't get a fear or a blind off, won't be able to CC you while you're living action potion. So, you know, if you're a mage, if you're a priest, you can pop this sucker in the middle of a kidney shot, get some distance to try and, you know, turn the tables of the fight in your face.
I see. So you're still going to be getting pushed back if you're getting meleeed or something like that, but you're going to be immune to stun and movement. You can't just free cast in their face or something like that.
Exactly, which is something that you can do with a limited invulnerability potion, which is why, right, as a caster, something that I like so much. I can straight up pop a lip in the face of a rogue and just start frostbolting him. If I know that he's not going to blind me. It's better against warrior in that way, but and even then they could fear me, so it's usually not safe to do that. But sometimes
so do you carry all 3 of these with you? Are you just like a little gnomish alchemist with all these freaking potions on you all the time?
Yes, and it makes it very expensive for me to walk around in Silithus because I'm, I'm a little fucking potion junkie. It feels bad sometimes. My gnome will sit in Ironforge and start tapping his veins when there's not enough lip in his blood. It feels bad.
All right, man. So let's move on to the free action potion. So this one, if you guys are noticing a trend here, the ones that are you can be reactive with and have a more powerful effect, they have a shorter duration as well. So free action has a great effect and it lasts for a full 30 seconds. But yeah, once you're already stunned or whatever, or you have a movement impairing effects on you, it's not going to remove that, right? So, but are you still using that? Like, what's a use case that you would use free action potion with?
So usually for me, it's large scale world PvP, or when the situation at hand is one of damage is not the thing that's going to kill me, right? So if damage isn't the thing that's going to kill me, then I really do want a free action potion. If it's going to be being locked down, that's going to prevent me from, reaching my goal, you want that. That doesn't happen too often for a mage, especially a no mage, because I have Escape Artist and I have Blink. So, right, I was not going to include this on top 5 because I have a class that's very uniquely suited to not have to deal with, using too many free action potions. Because I have, right, Blink is essentially a living action potion. It removes stuns and immobilizations, right, when you use it, and it's a teleport. It's a 13.5-second cooldown when you have, the PvP set bonus. So that's something that I wouldn't have included Living Action Potion because of the ability that I have. And Free Action Potion, I've already got Escape Artist. But for people who don't have it, or for people who are always needing to, not be CC'd for a long duration, this is going to be your best world PvP consume. So, it's that bread and butter of the warrior. It's that bread and butter of the rogue. Because they have so much damage, but...
So a lot of these melee classes might rank that a lot higher than you as a mage.
Exactly, because they're the ones actually being CC'd by me, right? They need the FAP into the mage, whereas I don't really need a FAP into a mage.
I would imagine with the rogue would be super valuable too, because you get to pick and choose your fights, right? You're opening from stealth, and you're kind of the ebb and flow of combat as you open it up and sort of pursuing that person while you under your terms. So in that kind of pretext, something like a free action potion might really shine.
Yeah, like rogues typically will use it on you can cheap shot and then just immediately open up with free action potion on a mage if you're really just trying to kill them in that 30-second window, which is something that's you're very apt to do, because then you will be able to stick on top of them unless they get a sheep off, unless they have something else. But they've got a gnomish dynamatic, it's useless. They've got a title charm, it's you're immune. They have grenades, you're immune, right? So you have so many things that the mage would try and peel you off with that they now can't, right? If they then in turn, but here's the depth of the consume meta. If the mage then turns around and says, well, you've used a FAP, I'm going to chug this lip. You're not going to be able to interrupt me unless you use a fancy ability to do it. And even if you do, you have to do it super fucking fast, because I can lip, and in the next second and a half, have you in a sheep.
Right. So let's drive that point home, dude. So free action potion, you're not totally immune to CC. It's just stun and movement. So like you said, sheep is a polymorph effect. So is that kind of like your chess play right there? When people go FAP.
Exactly, and this is the depth. This is the depth of the consume meta. This is what is beautiful about Vanilla WoW. This is what people don't appreciate about Vanilla World of Warcraft PvP. It's that once I pop this limited invulnerability potion, that rogue still doesn't have no answers, right? He's fapped on me. He has free action potion running. I can't CC him. I'm like, fuck, I'm out of answers. So I pop the limited invulnerability potion. I start sheeping him. He has a second and a half to blind me. He doesn't have no option. Yeah, he can vanish. He can blind me. He could even grenade me. He could try and kill me in that second and use a goblin sapper charge while ambushing and thistle-teeing, right? He has 10 options under the sun for what he wants to do and how he wants to respond. But the only thing keeping us in this game, the only thing keeping us cat and mouse with one another, is that we're both using the consumes. If I didn't have it, I'd just be dead. If he didn't have it, he'd just be dead. But because we both have it, we're now entering into this consume minigame.
So crazy, man. People say vanilla PvP is so simple, the classes are so simple compared, but this just adds layers and layers and layers to it and really just opens up the possibilities of your class, man. It's so cool. All right, so let's move on to the last one, man. Number one, most important consumable, at least in your mind, in world PvP, are grenades. So basically we've got potions, band-aids, grenades. This is like the fundamentals of good vanilla WoW PvP. Now, those potions seem pretty powerful, man. Why do you think grenades are in the #1 slot?
So grenades are unique in that they are a form of CC that is very readily available and cheaply available that comes with damage. So you're really getting the whole package. It's on a minute-long cooldown, the engineering cooldown, and what you get is a very reliable form of an interrupt, a ranged damage ability to keep people in combat, something to lock someone down, to have a gap closer. This item alone makes it so that, in Warrior vs. Mage, in Rogue vs. Mage, a Mage can't just sit there and hard cast on any number of person, because if that other person's prepared, if they're not disrespecting their opponent, if I start channeling a Frostbolt, they'll throw a grenade at me. I've now lost my advantage because, right, I spent, however many seconds in a useless Frostbolt that's been interrupted, and they're running towards me full speed because they've used a grenade and I've messed up. So this, it presents, a unique sort of CC opportunity. It's not the, maybe other classes that have sort of diminishing returns with the stun that is provided by the grenade. Notably, it's considered a stun, so free action potion will immune you to it, but it works like an incapacitate in that if you hit someone while they're grenaded, they will be broken out of the stun.
Interesting, because the tooltips read stuns, but that makes sense. So that it really just kind of incapacitates.
Yeah, so it's a stun that it's a stun that incapacitates. Vanilla tooltips can be very, very wonky sometimes.
Right. There's so much to unpack with everything. The tooltip can't even really do it full justice, So maybe you could explain how grenades kind of work, because it's a little bit counterintuitive, I have to say. Like, you might want to, if you throw a grenade in game, it looks like you'd have to friggin' thread the needle Tom Brady style and account for where they're going to, and like basically lead the passer, sort of. So how does it actually work, man?
So a great video for this actually was made by OG the Mage, and actually prior to watching it, I wasn't quite sure how grenades landed. I thought that I was insane. I thought the grenades never landed. I thought that it was RNG as hell, but turns out it's actually fairly simple. When you toggle up a grenade, a small green circle will appear on the ground, 3 yards across.
It's like when you're casting a blizzard, right? It's the same kind of little AoE circle thing, not smaller, but
yeah, it's the AoE reticle. Yeah, exactly. And when you click somewhere on the ground, that grenade will cast for 1 second. Now, this is off the global cooldown. You can do this while moving with grenades, so it's fairly easy to do. But at the end of that cast, if that person who you're trying to hit is in the green circle, no matter where they are after the cast finishes, no matter how far they travel while you're physically throwing it in the air, because after you finish the wind up, you actually throw it, they will be stunned. So it doesn't matter if someone has all the speed consumables in the world, but they're close enough that you when the 1 second cast ends, that they're within the green circle, even if they're 100,000 yards away after
teleported to GM
during this throw. Yeah, even if they're, so long as they're not phased to the other side, if they get teleported in the middle of after the grenade has registered a hit but is in the air, if they get teleported from Teneris to Everlook, they will still be stunned.
That is very interesting, man. That's very counterintuitive. But so the game has basically confirmed that they're gonna get hit once the cast time goes off and they're in that reticle. Doesn't matter if they're in friggin' Timbuktu, they're getting hit. And it seems like that's like a unique thing. Like, I can't think of anything else that operates in that way. There could very well be stuff, but very, very interesting. So it seems like a big part of this too is the accessibility as well, right? Like, it's a type of thing where, like you said, with Flask of the Titans, or maybe even a limited invulnerability potion, this stuff is a little bit pricey, but iron grenades are like the common people's, go-to PvP utility potentially, and that definitely factors in. Yeah. Exactly.
In this list, I try to strike a balance between what's powerful and what's accessible. That's why a couple of things didn't quite make the list, because they're a little bit on the pricier side, and you can't always rely on having them. Despite that fact, we put the Dr. Seuss potions, which are on the pricier side, as number 2, just because of how much they have the potential to turn a fight for, every class, really, from the warrior with the FAP to the mage with the lip. It's a huge opportunity, even if it is a little more expensive. The grenade is unique, though, in that it's dirt cheap. Everyone has iron lying around. Everyone has heavy blasting powder. So it's not it's not unrealistic to never be without grenades. And that's the reason why here we're not even, we're showing the thorium grenade, but the iron grenade is what most people actually end up using, just because, again, practicality. Sure, the thorium grenade's doing a lot more damage, but you're not really relying on it for damage. You're relying on it for the CC that it brings. Having the damage as well is a nice touch, and if you can afford to bring those, you definitely should. But the reality is that, like, you know, accessibility is going to mean a lot for people in vanilla World of Warcraft, because not everyone is going to be playing it for 16 hours a day every single day.
Right, and you could invest your savings into other stuff too. Like if you just got cheaper iron grenades, and maybe you could afford a few more, you know, lips or whatever instead of getting thorium grenades. Yeah,
exactly. And you want the breadth of tools there rather than that 200 damage. That 200 damage might make a difference sometimes, but largely speaking, right, it's going to be 200 damage coming at a time when you're about to burst someone, right? When you're getting that quick reset off with the grenade. For that 3 seconds, maybe to wind up a frostbolt, or get in position for an ambush, or get ready for an execute. So you have, right, it's damage sometimes at a place where it's not really necessary because you're winding it up anyway. Whereas, yeah, if you spent that money on something else, if you spent that money on, you know, an extra stack of lips, or an extra stack of faps or laps, you're going to do a lot more than that damage will provide.
Would you say that you know, gold efficiency, like cost to impact, is this the most impactful thing you can buy, you know, for the money? Because when you're thinking about how many you can purchase with the money as well.
Yes,
like
unequivocally.
Okay.
Unequivocally, this is the best bang for your buck, and that's why we put it on one. But it's just the best bang.
The best bang. Nice. Makes a lot of sense, man. It seems like you're valuing control and finesse over damage, over raw damage, and you see that, you know, throughout competitive PvP games the world over, right? It seems to be that's king, kind of generally speaking, over damage. All right.
And especially as you get later into the like timeline of a World of Warcraft server, a vanilla server, something that people actually don't really take into account is that a lot of classes aren't getting more stamina. They're just getting more and more and more and more damage. So when you look at Nax, right, people have at times said that, right, the PvP is kind of imbalanced because of how everyone is very, very bursty. So having these consumes, right, you know, as much as a health potion is going to be nice, it's a flat amount of health, whereas this is winding up. This is trying to synergize into your abilities, the damage that you're already doing. So if you're a beefed up rank 14 warrior and you use this grenade, it's going to carry a lot more meaning than the guy with, you know, the wet noodle in IL3. Who, right, his execute's not going to mean as much.
That's a hell of a list, Nora. That really makes a lot of sense to me, man. We're going to move on to a quick little segment here. Honorary mentions. For those of you watching right now, you may have some stuff in mind that you're wondering, why didn't that make the list, you know? Like, most notably, Goblin Sapper Charge might be on a lot of people's radars. So maybe you could share a few thoughts on these items here. These were ones that, you know, that we thought that were worth mentioning but didn't quite make it.
Sure. So right off the bat, Woe the Banshee and Clutch of Foresight, as much as they're cool items, they're not really World PvP consumes, because you have to get them in Stratholme. They're not guaranteed drops in an instance that are one-time use. So as much as Clutch of Foresight might win you a 1v1 here or there, same thing with Banshee's Veil against a melee, it's not going to be worth the trouble when World PvP is usually a very, very lengthy process, right? You're going to be out there for a while. You want to make sure that you have a lot of grenades, a lot of potions. So given that you can only have one of each of these, if that's your bucket, go for it. But, you know, it's not really too powerful, again, because of that practicality.
Makes sense. So these are still very situationally strong items, right? It just seems like they're almost a little bit more niche of when you would use them, and it doesn't really earn them a slot into the top, like the top 5 items you listed are like the bread and butter core mechanics, you know, like.
Exactly. A great Clutch of Foresight can really turn a match around, especially against, right, a caster as a rogue or a warrior, right? That's a ranged counterspell. You're getting essentially the most powerful interrupt in the game that's off of global cooldown. You're getting the same thing off of global cooldown against casters that are largely not going to be expecting it. It's a very powerful item. It's just, you only get one. Moving on, the Sapper Charge, which probably a lot of people would be expecting on this list, again, is largely absent because of 2 reasons. The first is other abilities, other items, other, right, consumes will do damage, right? That's not a question here. So you have other means of actually acquiring damage. Although Goblin Sapper Charge is off the global cooldown like a grenade, it also has a 5-minute cooldown. So you don't have that accessibility in terms of how often you can use these. These are also much more expensive. They take a long time to craft. You have to have a Goblin Engineer to craft them. So typically you're going to be buying these off the auction house. Because the craft, I believe the craft time itself for each sapper is around 45 seconds with all the things that are lead up to make it. So practically running around with a ton of these can be expensive, but also it's not really going to be filling a gap. It's not really going to be filling a gap that other things aren't. Yes, if you're just on the very cusp of killing someone and you use this off the global cooldown, it might surprise them and kill them. It'll be a very useful thing, especially in world PvP. It is very strong because it's all enemies around you. If you read the tooltip, it's 450 to 750, which is higher than the thorium grenade, the highest level grenade, but it's also to all enemies nearby. So it's a really, really powerful tool in massive like 40 versus 40, 100 versus 100. It's an absolutely essential tool. It'd be #1 on the list in 40 versus 40. But in small group PvP, right, in your generic world PvP, in the how do I tie my shoes before I leave Ironforge and go out into the world, Mr. North, this is not going to be, right, as good as a grenade is. Same thing applies with Magic Dust. Although it is a very strong item, practically having a ton of them, it's going to be expensive. You have to farm these in Westfall if you want to farm them or purchase them, so it's going to be a fairly pricey thing. So for most people, right, bang for your buck wise, they are strong, but practically less viable.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is North's top 5 world PvP consumables. I sure hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. Thank you so much for sharing this, North. You guys, you gotta subscribe to this guy on YouTube. He's gonna start making more YouTube content. He's also streaming over on twitch.tv /North the Mage, one word. Any final thoughts?
Just that really looking forward to Classic WoW and seeing all the community actually get their hands on you know, what is a very rich and rewarding consume meta. It might seem a little daunting at first with all the names as you go down, but if you can boil it down to just, you know, what I should have before I kit up and I leave, you know, be it Ogrimmar, be it Stormwind, be it Ironforge, be it Thunderbluff. If you're edgy and you like to sit on the top of a mountain, it is a ton of fun.
Definitely, man. Last thing I'll say is if you do plan on playing Horde in Classic World of Warcraft, you might want to figure out what server North's playing on and then not roll there. Alright guys, see you in the next video. Peace out.